Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be, and welcome to today's streaming media webinar, Mastering Live Streaming at Scale, sponsored by EEG, an AI media company, Ant Media, and Theo. Welcome and thanks for joining us. We've got a great discussion ahead of us. I'm Eric Schumacher Rasmussen. I am the editor and VP of Streaming Media, and I'll be running the boards and asking some questions of our speakers here today while we talk about all aspects of live streaming. Before we jump in, though, a few housekeeping notes. If you do have questions for our panelists, we ask that you put them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom window. It's easier for me to keep track of those questions there than it is if some of them are in chat and some are in Q&A. I'll have my eye on the chat, of course, and if questions do come in there, I'll try to grab them. But the Q&A tab is the best place to enter them. If we run out of time before we get to all audience questions, we will send those questions on to our panelists so they have them and can answer them offline after the fact. Also, I will be turning on live captioning here in just a moment. If you want to turn it off, you can do so by going to the live transcript or live captioning button at the bottom of your screen and click Disable Transcripts. This event will be archived. You'll be able to watch it on demand within 24 hours of us finishing our conversation here today, and you'll receive an email with a link to take you to the on-demand version, and of course you can share that link with your colleagues as well. Finally, just for being here, you are entered into a drawing to win a $100 Amazon gift card. We'll be announcing the winner at the end of the month and, of course, sending an email to the winner of that gift card when we announce it. So I'd like to introduce our speakers today before I have them each come on individually and then give a little bit of a presentation about their companies, what their latest technologies and product announcements are, and then we'll jump into the conversation. We're going to be hearing from Matt Mello, who's the Technical Sales Manager at EEG, an AI media company, Ahmet Oguz-Mermerkaya, who's the co-founder and CEO of Ant Media, and Bart Van Oosterhout, who's the VP of Product Management from Theo Technologies. And with that, I'd like to pass things over to Matt Mello from EEG, who will tell you a little bit about what EEG does. And I'll stop sharing my screen so Matt can share his.
Sure.
Hey, Matt,
thank you, Eric. I'm very good. How about yourself?
Good, good. Take it away.
Let me see if I can share my screen here properly. All right. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We're excited to be a part of this panel. As Eric was saying, I'm Matt. I'm from EEG AI Media. And essentially, our company together combines to be a full live transcription and infrastructure company. So any sort of requirement for live closed captioning whatsoever, we do have it covered in just about any area. And live streaming is a big part of where we do handle closed captioning in various formats. We do have two products that are somewhat focused on the live streaming market. Those would be Falcon and Alta. And those are essentially ways that you can add live closed captioning in two different video formats for live streaming. So these are the ones that if you are looking to add live closed captioning to any live streams, especially at scale, I would probably point you to one of these two products. And essentially, Falcon's our RTMP live stream encoder. Alta handles MPEG transport stream, and then if you get up to 2110 video, it can also add captions in that. And those can also access our Lexi automatic captioning service, which creates closed captions with about 96% accuracy right out of the box. And then we also have our newest smart Lexi product, which is essentially kind of the middle ground between live human captioning and automatic transcription, where you'd be working with a person from our services team. So all of these kind of in conjunction work together to create a fully captioned stream of your choice, whichever video format you're working on. So that's just a little bit about EEG AI Media, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the Q&A panel as they come up related to captioning. And I will pass it back to Eric here.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. Next up is Ahmet from Ant Media. Ahmet, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
And if you want to share your screen and take it away, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. So let me tell about the Ant Media and Ant Media Server. So the Ant Media Server is a streaming engine, and there are users more than 120 countries, and there are more than 7,000 instances are running worldwide. And these are some of the customers that use Ant Media Server in their backend. So what is Ant Media Server? Ant Media Server is a streaming engine. It can run on-prem, on cloud, or anywhere. So there are some basic main features of Ant Media Server. One of them is the real-time or low-latency streaming. It is another feature of it is scalability. It is scalable, and it is very easy to integrate. So just let me give some more information about the real-time and low-latency streaming. So Ant Media Server supports several latencies. For instance, it supports sub-second latency with Webrtc. It supports 3 to 5 seconds latency with CMAF. And also it supports HLS as a traditional latency to 8 to 12 or more seconds of latency. So this solution is scalable, and it is very easy to install a scalable solution, for instance, in AWS, in Kubernetes, or somewhere. There's a YouTube video that shows you how to install Ant Media Server in AWS in an auto-scalable way, so that you will have a real-time streaming platform in 5 minutes under your control. And by using this CloudFormation template in AWS, we just create a white paper with Jean-Ozer, and it is available in streamingmedia.com. So it is the ultimate guide from zero to Webrtc hero. And we had 150K viewers in this white paper. And our idea is to have more viewers in the next releases, so it is just a journey. And the latest feature is it is very easy to integrate. There are SDKs, Android, iOS, Flutter, React Native SDKs are available, and there's an API on the server side to make life easy for the developers to integrate with any project. So where you can use Ant Media Server, you can use education, gaming, security, broadcasting, conferencing. In other words, you can use it in any vertical that has some kind of live streaming. And how you can launch the Ant Media Server? So Ant Media Server is available in the marketplaces, such as AWS Marketplace, Azure Marketplace, Linode, Walter, etc. So you can just click there and launch the media server. Or alternatively, you can just go to the antmedia.io and you can just get an on-prem license and you can install Ant Media Server to your platform. So future is exciting. We have some ideas to try for this year. And we are going to start a marketplace for the media server apps so that the developers, video developers, can create media server applications and upload to the marketplace, and it can be deployable to the Ant Media Server. And there is also a very interesting and exciting thing on my end. We are building a decentralized media server for real-time streaming. So it is related to the Web3 and distributed systems. And the last thing that we are working on that, the Ant Media has been working on a volumetric video project, which is a spaceport. It is really an R&D project, and we plan to have it launch at the end of this year. So this is all for Ant Media. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Ahmet. It's sounding a little bit Star Trek-ish in here, but I'm guessing that's kind of intentional. Next up, Bart from Theo. Bart, welcome.
Thank you, Eric. Great to be here. Let me also quickly share my screen. Here you go. Hope you can all see this. So as an intro, so I'm looking into product management and go-to-market for the high-efficiency streaming protocol at Theo Technologies. We're a global company on a mission to change the way the world streams video over the internet. Actually, I put a couple of items on the slides, key items to remember. No worries, it's the only slide I'll present. Yeah, what to remember from us, we're mainly known from our flagship product, TIO Player, which is a premium video player for media and entertainment companies to provide for cutting-edge video experiences across any device, from up to smart TVs, and very pre-integrated in the ecosystem. Secondly, we're very much focused on low latency. Early adopters of protocols such as low latency dash, low latency HLS were actually the first video player who implemented low latency HLS. Subsequently, we also are inventor of the high efficiency streaming protocol, or HSP, which really brings sub-second latency with a number of other benefits, such as fast channel change and improved APR, and one of the founding members of the HSP Alliance, which is the go-to-market vehicle of HSP. And then last but not least, something I'm very excited about is an end-to-end cloud-based solution that we launched based on HSP, which is called HSP.live or TIO Live, which is a real-time video API at scale. It really makes it easy to get started with real-time streaming at scale. Voilà, that's in a nutshell, Eric, what TIO is about.
Terrific. Thanks to all three of you for your introductions, and I'll ask Ahmet and Matt to join us again. And as you see, each of our speakers today, each of the companies comes at live streaming from a slightly different angle and sits at a different place in the workflow. But over the course of the next 45 minutes or so now, we're going to talk about both the specific areas in the workflow that those companies sit in, as well as live streaming in general. So let's start big picture. Obviously, live streaming has exploded in the last 2 years. I think the growth has outpaced what most of us would have predicted, but then again, it's been an unpredicted 2 years. So what are the biggest trends and opportunities that you see in live streaming right now? Let's start with Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm seeing that everyone is moving to live streaming in some way, shape, or form, right? So you have all of these customers who are looking to start live streaming. If they've done traditional broadcast in some way, they're going to OTT platforms. If you have people who are doing like government broadcast, they might be pushing to live streams now to service everybody possible, and to shift away from traditional means of broadcasting and live streaming. So that would be the biggest shift, is that everyone is doing it, and it's really like a race right now to see how live streaming is going to end up at the end, right? How are we going to see live streaming in 10 years from now? Is it going to be everyone is live streaming, or is it going to be a totally different thing that we haven't thought of yet?
Ahmet, what are your thoughts on the big picture?
Okay, for the big picture, so I have a different idea for the live streaming about the latency stuff. So when we take a look at the Google's information, they just said that we are not very waiting for a website to load if it takes longer than 1 second. So we just expect everything to happen instantly. So for the real-time streaming, I think why we are waiting for 10 seconds of latency, and why we don't see it for instantly. And for the pandemic and other stuff, live streaming adoption has increased too much, and there are lots of projects with that. And I think the live streaming at scale with the lower latencies is a very and the next feature of the video streaming. So this is not only my idea, and when we just take a look at some developer reports, some predictions from some companies, they all say that viewer engagement and lower latencies is the future of the live streaming.
Perfect. And Bart, your thoughts on the big picture of the trends and opportunities and challenges, perhaps, that live streaming presents right now?
Yeah, I actually have to concur with Ahmet there, and I think everything which is real-time interactive experience at scale is something that we see more and more demand for, and not just that, but also have that in very high quality. and being able to do it to large audience sizes, like thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions. For example, for like engaging TV shows, you want to say, okay, what's going to happen in this TV show? Will this person be, will they win, yes or no? And you can vote then as an audience, and you can show online stats. Also for live sports betting, for example, which is getting a lot of traction in the US. So each of these things require interactivity, and you really need high quality and scalability there. So that's the first thing that I do see. That is a trend. Secondly, I also see more and more questions coming in. Yeah, it's great that you can do that, but can we also do it secure? Because you have a lot of live sports content. Obviously, if you can do real-time streaming and there is a contractual obligation to use DRM, can we do it secure? That's another thing that I see more and more traction about.
Excellent. I think those are all good points. And Ahmet, I like the fact that you mentioned the importance of both low latency and engagement. Obviously, lower latency and more real-time streaming creates more engagement, but occasionally, I think, not occasionally, but there are always compromises to be made, right? And in each use case, there are ways to engage viewers that sometimes you might have to sacrifice a little on the latency side. In other times, the lowest latency possible is really what's most important. So why do you think it's so important for online video platforms, CDNs, and publishers in general to offer real-time live streaming, or as close to real-time as you can possibly get?
Oh, yeah, I got it. So I think the answer is very basic, because there's a demand for that. Users are asking lower latency, real-time streaming, and they just like to have viewer engagement with the broadcaster or somewhere or somehow. But I don't mean that everything should be in real time, because as you mentioned, some use cases do not need real-time streaming. So maybe 3 to 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, maybe 1 minute, it's okay. No worries with that. But the point is that some users really need real-time streaming. I think OVPs and CDNs provide real-time offering to their product, and on the other hand, they should also support the traditional latency and low latency. So I think this the basic answer is just there's a demand for that. And the second thing on my end, the important thing is the user experience. So when I'm publishing a stream, I can use, for instance, OBS. So I'm open broadcaster software. I'm just one fan of it. So it's very good. But on the other hand, it is a third-party application. So I just need to install it. I just need to configure it, and I just need to enter the parameters. But if I use some lower latency real-time streaming, and if I use Webrtc, I'm just going to click a button on my web browser, and it starts streaming. So the real-time streaming with Webrtc, with web browsers, I think it really increases user experience. And I think this is why OVPs and CDNs should provide some kind of real-time offerings to their list.
Excellent. I'm going to ask Matt a follow-up right away, and then Bart, I'll ask you to chime in as well. But the follow-up for you, Matt, is going to be very specific, because I know that every time, every time you get into captioning live content, people ask, well, what sort of latency might that add, right? So could you talk a little bit about that? Maybe not necessarily getting down to numbers. We can do that later on if we want. But how does live closed captioning affect the latency of a stream delivery?
Yeah, so as far as latency from like the video passing through one of our encoders to actually add the live closed captioning, it's very minimal, especially in our hardware products and Alta. It's very, very minimal video passing through it. The delay that people are usually referring to there is the actual caption displaying on the screen behind what's being said in regards to captions. So that's usually, it depends on what the captioning source is, but you can generally say about 3 to 4 seconds is expected. That should not affect the process of real-time streaming, though. If there is a real-time streaming workflow occurring and we have our hardware in there somewhere, an SDI or an MPEG transport stream, it should be adding next to no milliseconds of latency. It's very, very minimal.
Okay. Bart, your thoughts on why it's so important for CDNs and publishers to look at real-time live streaming right now?
There's indeed a lot of demand for it. As Ahmed was saying, it's just a big opportunity. If you look at the markets that are there, it's online betting, online auctions, live sports, those type of things. It's all multi-billion markets which are very quickly growing. So you want to be in there. I think additionally the viewers, they are much more demanding than they were before. They expect real-time streaming and they expect high quality real-time streaming. If you're doing live sports, for example, you want to be able to see who's scoring. You want to see the number on the shirt. You want to be able to see if you're doing live concerts. You want to have a high quality experience of the concert while engaging with your fans. So I think that's all use cases which are getting more and more common. And whereas you want to be in there. Also for CDN providers, for example, you see other services popping up. I might just suggest Webrtc services for CDN providers. There's actually I think there's an easier solution, which is HSP. Basically, it works on standard CDNs, and I think that's for me that's the way to go, of course.
So I have a question for Matt. May I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you are doing live captioning, and so we are having a streaming engine, and there's a plugin architecture there, and our users are asking about live captioning on the fly on the video conferencing side. So is there a chance that we can use your solution as a kind of API so that we will just show the live captioning when we are playing the streams?
I think I made myself a sale on this call. I didn't expect that. The answer is yeah. We do have integrations with a couple of different playout companies that essentially use our ICAP network to communicate with captioning agencies and something like our Latency service to generate closed captions and then pull them back into that integrated system. So the answer is yeah, we do have APIs that work with all different types of our encoders and ASR program.
Oh, sounds perfect. So maybe we can schedule a meeting after that so we can discuss. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Room, guys. But it's Ahmet, you mentioned WebRTC. Bart, obviously you mentioned HESP or HESP. So let's talk about these various protocols, and let's start with you, Bart. When people talk about real-time streaming these days, most people or a lot of people are talking about WebRTC. Can you talk about how it compares to HESP, Dash, low latency HLS? And then, of course, I'm guessing Ahmet will have a few things to say about that as well. But just your thoughts on that and what you've discovered.
Yes. So let me first give a bit of background on the high efficiency streaming protocol. So it's an HTTP-based streaming protocol. It brings really high efficiency streaming. We say so it brings sub-second latency at scale. And in addition to that, it also brings fast channel change and improved APR. To your question, how does it compare to an HLS and a Dash? I think there's a couple of similarities there. First of all, it's HTTP based, so it can easily scale over standard CDNs. You can easily reach hundreds or thousands or millions of viewers globally. For HSP, the only requirement is actually string transfer encoding and byte range requests. We see most CDNs actually going into that direction or already having adopted it. I think similar as well. It's a standard. So HSP is available as an IETF informational draft, and HLS and Dash, of course, are also standardized. HSP is also CMF compatible, so all of the good stuff in terms of compatibility around DRM, at insertion, subtitles and so forth, that's coming back, and which is great. It can be combined with all of the benefits of HSP. Had some similarities in terms of differences. It's obviously, but even with low latency HLS and low latency Dash, there's 3 to 5 seconds of latency. With HSP, we can really go sub-second under the condition, of course, that all of your components in your workflow are optimized for sub-second latency, including the encoder. And HSP also brings that fast channel change. So that's differences there. If I can also start maybe with the comparison with Webrtc, Ahmed, you can piggyback on that. I think Webrtc is a really good protocol, and I also really like what you guys are doing with it, Ahmed. But if you look intrinsically at it, it's meant for peer-to-peer communication. So if you want to scale it, it really becomes complex and expensive to scale. You really scale through server infrastructure, and I think that's where HSP is really different, because you can scale through a standard CDN. You can easily handle bursts. You don't need any pre-allocation of server infrastructure. And if you want to go to really thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of viewers, my view on it is that it's a lot easier to do that with an HSP than it is with a Webrtc.
Okay, so I think it's my turn. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, Webrtc. I'm a fan of Webrtc, but I'm not addicted to the Webrtc. So as you mentioned, it's not very easy to scale in Webrtc. This is why some maybe OVP, CDNs, or companies need a server like Antmedia server. This is one point. On the other hand, generally we are pragmatists. So if HSP is doing well and you have a very good traction, or you have very good usage, so we can even implement it on Antmedia server side. So there's no worries for that. And as you know, Antmedia and Teoplay are also partners.
Yes,
we also had these kind of talks in our site. So in general, okay, so there's an opportunity for our end to implement the HSP for the Antmedia server. So it is just...
Yes, you guys should join the HSP Alliance.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can join that. No worries with that. So we are just looking at the market, so how it goes. So if it is promising, then it's okay. No worries with that. On the other hand, Webrtc has the feature for both sending stream and playing stream. So for the interactivity side, I think even if you can use the HSP on the playback side, you're still using RTMP to push the stream. Maybe you just need, maybe there are just kind of integration to ingest the Webrtc stream and convert it to the HSP. So it may increase some kind of user experience. And I think on that part, we can also work together. Maybe we can just create some kind of Webrtc integration for your platform. Yeah.
Yeah, of course we can look into that.
Yeah, sure. So let's schedule another meeting for that then.
Martin, I have a question for you too. I'm sorry, Eric. I just have a question. So we are always looking to support closed caption for any video format that we can add it to, right? We're looking for like anything that's becoming popular, or that we should be looking into for adding closed captions. Right now, our Falcon product supports RTMP input and then either RTMP output or HLS push output. Do you think that there should be an effort made to add closed captions in an ESP workflow, or is there another format that we should be looking at that we should be natively adding closed captions to?
I think it would be great if you guys I could look into HSP. Yeah? I was actually, as you guys were also part of the panel discussion, and we've actually done some tests as well to work with how to do a feed into HSP.live, for example, to immediately send it to a transcription service in parallel, and then to send the captions then to the viewers, which was very useful. So I think, yeah, that experiment, of course, it wasn't fully fledged production. I think it was useful to see that, yeah. So I think those type of services and integration of HSP could definitely be useful, Matt.
So native HSP, you think? Cool.
Yeah, and it's compatible with CMAP, by the way. Yeah? So everything you would do there, it should also work on HSP.
Cool.
Also,
thank you.
Matt, you mentioned that you ingest the RTMP stream. Yeah, and for most of our users are using Media Server to integrate Webrtc stream to their RTMP infrastructure. I'm not sure. Maybe the Media Server can ingest Webrtc and can convert and push to any RTMP endpoint. Maybe there's an opportunity for that one as well. So that you will just ingest the stream from the web browser and can create closed captioning on your end. Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely be possible. Also, direct integration might have its benefits too, just depending on, I guess, where they want the closed captions embedded and in what formats. But yeah, either one would work just fine. Yeah.
You are muted.
Before we went live, I bragged about how good I was getting with the mute and unmute button, and I knew I jinxed myself. But Ahmet, how can OVPs and CDNs then go about adding real-time live streaming to what they're offering, especially what they're offering globally, large scale?
Okay, it's a great question. So one solution is developing the solution. So I don't think it's a good idea. As Bart mentions, Webrtc and real-time streaming is a complex protocol. So when the latency decreases, the complexity of the protocol increases. And Webrtc is not designed for one-to-many broadcasting. It's just one-to-one broadcasting. It is designed. I think the OVPs and CDNs can use a solution that is mature, and this solution should not break anything in the infrastructure. It should be compatible with the old technologies. So in the playback side, for instance, RTMP is already dead, or it is dying. But on the ingesting side, RTMP is used it is still used in lots of cases. So I think the first thing is the real-time offering should not break anything in the system, and it should create some kind of compatibility with these old infrastructures. This is the first thing. And the second thing, I think, so the OVPs and CDNs has geographically lots of pop points in the world. In order to have some kind of real-time offering, so their solution should work in a multi-level cluster. For instance, a cluster in China should work in a cluster in United States. So that it will have some kind of optimization between these clusters, and it will just stream everything in a very smooth and high quality way. So this is what we call multi-level clusters that we have deployed in Media Server. I think this is the two important things, and maybe the third thing is this one. So there should be a team that focus on developing this technology. So, for instance, for our site, we just focus on creating the best product in the market for the media server. So we just don't give it as a software as a service. We just would like to make the best product, and our focus is this one. So that we are working hard with our customers to fix their issues and to understand their cases. So our product is getting mature in every day because we are getting issues from lots of users, and we are making the product mature. And our team is focused on that. So the third thing is a focused team behind the product, an experienced team behind the product is necessary for the OVPNs and CDNs to offer a real-time streaming offering to their infrastructure.
Art, do you have anything you'd like to add to that about what OVPs and CDNs and publishers should look at as they're thinking about adding live streaming or real-time live streaming or very low latency live streaming to their offerings?
Yes. I think I agree on the compatibility point. I think there is a lot of existing infrastructure and global infrastructure which is there and which works efficiently, and it's made to scale to big audiences and to do that cost efficiently. Of course, HSP is perfect for that. Then if you want to get started at it from a CDN perspective, there's typically already compatibility. But what you would additionally need how to get started is you would also need a packager and a player which are HSP compatible. That's something you could decide to implement yourself. That's where the HSP Alliance is for. You can implement HSP there in your own solution. You can also decide to purchase point solutions from the members, HSP Alliance members who have done that for you, put together your own workflow. And then how to get started, the third item is to go for a cloud solution such as HSP.live. It's really easy to get started, and you can actually get started in minutes.
Matt, I'm going to spin the question a little different way. When publishers are looking at adding live captioning, what are the things they should consider and the questions they should ask when thinking about adding that to their global offerings?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that I keep thinking of while we're having this discussion too is where the content ends up and what video format the captions are added in, and that's because with some of the older standards like RTMP, there is a limitation on what languages of captions can be displayed, and this is a little bit of an accessibility thing. So if you had your content and you were looking to get it out to as many people as possible, you would like that to be translated. Typically you would want to translate it in as many languages as it can go out on. We've noticed that a large user base are still using RTMP and old 608, 708, 608 standards to base their whole production around, which is it's not the way that it should be going in the live streaming world right now, because there's better standards that would allow for significantly more languages of captions to be added, significantly more tracks of captions to be added, so you can have like one broadcast that has like 6 languages of different languages of captions, so you can make it accessible for everyone. I think that's really where producers should be looking to really move production to is newer workflows for live streaming that allow you to do much more. And from my perspective with closed captioning, but I'm sure there's much more that you can do outside of just the closed captioning part with the newer streaming protocols.
Let's move to talk now about the experience for the user, the end user, the viewer. Excuse me. And Bart, we could perhaps start with you. What are some suggestions or best practices that you can suggest to make sure that publishers give their users the best possible sub-second or very low latency experience at the lowest cost?
Good question. I think definitely if you're looking into that and then you want to make it easily accessible, I think definitely HTTP-based streaming I would recommend. Also looking into more high-quality formats. I mentioned before, like if you do live sports, live concerts, also online shopping is getting big. Moving from China to Europe to the US, you really want high-quality experiences. I think those two things are key. And then you have to make sure that if you go HTTP-based, it depends on low latency, what it is that you're looking for. If you're happy with 3 to 5 seconds, I think you could go with current low latency protocols that VSTO player also support, being low latency dash, low latency HLS. And then if you're looking for further optimization to really go to sub-second latency and being able to do that cost efficiently, I think HSP is the way to go. And that can really provide for that experience that those demanding viewers are actually looking for. So yeah, and then there's different ways to go about that. I think covered those in your previous question, Eric.
All right, Ahmet, do you have any follow-up on sort of the best practices or suggestions to make the sub-second or real-time streaming experience as good as possible for users and still keep costs down?
Yeah, okay. For our cases, for our customer cases, the biggest cost is the data transfer for the real-time streaming or any kind of streaming. The biggest cost is the data transfer. So even if you use some real HTTP-based or real-time UDP-based solution, so the cost is still the data transfer. Maybe users can find some more other cloud providers that can provide a better cost for the data transfer. This is one of the important things. On the other hand, for having a real-time streaming and with good quality, so the location, the physical location between the publisher and the player is critical. So if a user is publishing from Singapore and the viewer is from United States, then I think there can be some kind of problems in the networking because there's too much physical distance there. So the quality decreases and there may be some kind of issues. So generally putting an instance that is close to Singapore and putting another instance that is in the United States create much more better user experience quality for the video streaming. So in another solution, in real-time streaming, you can get some kind of platform as a service from some providers, but their cost is really huge. And when you scale, so it really hurts. A solution like Ant Media Server can deploy any cloud platform so that you will just control everything and you will just know your cost. And even if you scale too much, then it is also very good because the cost of Ant Media Server will not increase dramatically. So the significant cost is going to be the cost of the cloud provider. So I think these are the things on my end.
I have going to say the close location is a good one, and I fully agree with that. Data transfer, I do want to say, will be, and the server infra cost will be a lot higher with non-HTTP based streaming versus HTTP based streaming. We've done some analysis around that, and I think 2 to 3 times more expensive for Webrtc based streaming, for example, versus HTTP based streaming. So that's I think if you're looking for lowest cost, for me it would still be HTTP based streaming. And you guys support both, I guess. You support CMAV and Webrtc. You'll have a better view even than we do.
Yeah, exactly. So when you get a discount from a CDN company, it's okay, no worries. So they can just decrease the cost. But it is still on the CDN or cloud provider side. But for instance, for our case, when we are deploying our solution in AWS, we can also make some kind of deals with AWS about decreasing the data transfer costs from the EC2 instances. So the cloud providers makes these kind of discounts for the users. But from our experience, generally the cost in the Webrtc streaming and the cost in the, for instance, in CDN streaming for the data transfer cost, it's very close, according to our experience. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so
I've seen this different experiences. Yeah,
sure.
I would say definitely HTTP-based streaming is a lot less expensive, and it would also be able to provide for higher quality video. And I think maybe also important for if you ask about Derek about viewers, I think what's also convenient about CDN, it's really be able to take viewer bursts. So if you have an unexpected number of viewers joining, the CDN caching is actually able to handle that very well. Well, if you would scale through server infrastructure, yes, there can be automation around it. But it could take a while actually for that automation to kick in. So I think, in addition to cost, we also see quite some benefits in terms of scalability and handling extra viewer loads there from a CDN perspective.
I want to make sure Matt gets
yes,
in
sorry.
on this discussion as well. No, it's
very passionate
because,
about this.
So I want to be sure that Matt, you get a chance to address how, again, shifting the question a little bit, what are some suggestions or best practices that you have to make sure that publishers give users the best captioning experience at the lowest cost?
Sure. So with captioning experiences, that you would be looking to essentially the same. Going back to my last point about the multiple languages, I think that having that option for everybody to be able to view the content that they want to watch in any language option that's available to them would be ideal, right? That in a perfect world, you'd have a list of 50, 60, 70 language choices for any piece of content that's going out there. But you have to be able to pick which ones you're planning to put out to market. So that would be my answer. That's for picking best captioning practices for anyone.
And finally, could you sort of build on that again and kind of go back out to the big picture of live captioning? We focus so much here, again, through this last 40-some minutes on latency and low latency, but it's more important than ever to make sure that content is accessible and engaging to the viewers. So how does live captioning help with that user engagement and obviously accessibility?
Yeah, so there's recently we've noticed that a lot of people that are watching programming are watching with captions. It's becoming very much more frequent. So being able to capture as much of an audience as you can is probably one of the biggest reasons that content producers are adding captions right now. And then also the accessibility aspect, of course, for anybody who's deaf or hard of hearing, having closed captions is critical to making sure that everybody can understand the content. And in a live aspect, some newer platforms have kind of forgone that live closed caption piece, mostly because of a workflow sort of question mark in the workflow, really, to how to add live closed captions in live content. But it's being sorted out now, and I think that as we continue going on here, we're developing new ways all the time for getting live closed captions in any up and coming video format. So there's going to be options for adding live closed captions everywhere, very shortly.
Right, and I'd like to echo what you said about more and more people watching with captions on, whether it's because of hearing issues or whether it's because they're in, which I guess this is related, if you're in a loud environment, or simply because I think as it's becoming a more global experience, more global world that we're living in, we are all watching content with multiple speakers and multiple accents and multiple languages. And so, captioning, when it's working correctly, can help everyone better understand and become better engaged with the content that that is out there, whether it's live or on demand.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're focusing on live here.
Yeah. Well, with the breakout of live streaming in the last 10 years or so, we kind of broke the borders of like traditional broadcasts where it's just in one language. They're just doing English and Spanish captioning in the U.S. and that's it. But now this content is being pushed everywhere. That's going. Big live events are going to 10 different countries with 35 different languages. So I think that's a big point of we need to make everything more accessible because it's going everywhere now.
Right, exactly. And I can't help but keep thinking as I'm staring at the live transcript in Zoom that I'm guessing there are obviously a lot better solutions out there for captioning content, especially with multiple accents than what you're seeing on your screen right here.
Yeah, there's a variety of options. There's so many different ways you can get captioning in either the native language that the content's being said in, and then also translating it into various languages. It's usually going to vary in price, just depending on how much you want to commit to that extreme accuracy level. Of 100% is going to be very difficult for live closed caption. But if you're talking about hiring a very well trained human to do the transcription, you can get 99 pretty readily available. And then with some of the automatic transcription, that's going to push our automatic transcription is ranging from about 96 to 98% accurate in good circumstances, and it's very, very, very it's getting much better as time goes on here.
Excellent. That wraps up the questions that we had for each other here. And we've got a number of questions in the Q&A from the audience. Some of them are fairly specific to particular speakers. And so I'm going to save those and send those offline because I think, frankly, that each of you have done a really great job of presenting your company's solutions and differentiating that solution from the others in the market that I don't want to spend too much more time on that, but I do have a couple questions here I'd like to address live. One of which is, do we ever see CMAF or HLS getting to sub-second ultra-low latency? Bart, do you want to take a swing at that one?
Sure. We've had conversations with a number of companies who have been able to get there, but that's typically in the perfect conditions. Meaning perfect bandwidth, and they work then at that very low buffer. And if there's any hiccups in the network, then typically there's buffering happening, and the quality is not very high. So yes, I've talked to people who've looked into this. I think what's key, if you work with low buffers, and we actually do the same with HSP. Is that you're able to change qualities very quickly, because if you then have changing network conditions, you're able to immediately go to a lower quality and handle those network variations. So I think that's I think where we differentiate. So yes, I've seen it, but it's more in proof of concept environments than it is in real life environments.
I can also add something.
Matt, anything to add there?
I'm not too familiar with the ultra low latency workflows, unfortunately. I'm more. We kind of are almost in many ways sort of like a pass through, and if we're adding latency to most things, we're causing a problem, right? So we try to shoot for as low latency as possible at all times. For the streaming protocols, I can't speak to, unfortunately.
Ahmet?
Okay, I can add some things for that. When we are implementing the CMAF for the Antimedia server side, so as Bart mentions, it can provide sub-second latency in a very well-defined network if everything is perfect. So it is designed for that generally. But because it is TCP-based and because there are some CDNs and there are some other parts in this connectivity, so the typical latency for this protocol is 3 to 5 seconds. In general, but if has a good quality of service for the network, then the latency can decrease absolutely for the CMAP side.
All right, very good. Again, most of the other questions in the Q&A really are focused on the I don't want to say minutia because it's all important stuff, but on the specifics of real-time streaming and ultra-low latency. And as I said, I will forward all of these questions to the speakers so they can answer them again offline. This has been a great discussion about live streaming in general and specifically real-time low latency and the importance of closed captioning. So once again, I'd like to thank Matt Mello from EEG AI Media, Ahmet from Ant Media, and Bart from Theo Technologies. Thanks so much. This recording will be available on demand within 24 hours. You'll get an email letting you know when it's available, and watch your email. You may have won an Amazon gift card as well. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you at the next webinar, and maybe we'll see some of you at NAB in 10 days or so. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.